The sound hits first. A low electric hum. Fluorescent light flickers overhead, buzzing like an angry fly in an empty room. The camera moves through a massive warehouse. Concrete floor cracked and pale. Air dry and still. Rows of metal pallets stretch into the distance, each marked with black stencils, U.S. Treasury. Boxes sliced open, plastic wrap hanging loose, dust floating like ash. A lone guard stands at the far end, rifle slung low. He looks like he's guarding ghosts. The camera glides closer, over a scuffed forklift, and stops on one abandoned stack of $100 bills. Torn plastic, one corner of the top note curled as if brushed by heat. The hum grows louder, then silence. $270 million, gone. It wasn't stolen in the dead of night. It didn't vanish through a tunnel or some secret bank transfer. It disappeared right here, in plain sight. Men in desert camo unload pallets from a gray C-130 cargo plane. Forklifts move boxes marked currency, U.S. origin. Cash, literal cash. Shrink-wrapped bricks of hundreds. We didn't send wire transfers to rebuild Iraq. We sent money. 11 cargo planes of it. Nearly $12 billion. And somewhere inside that tidal wave of cash, 270 million simply vanished. But to understand how that could happen, how hundreds of millions could evaporate in a country under full military occupation, we need to go back, to the beginning, to the moment it all seemed perfectly normal. Baghdad, 2003. The invasion has just ended. The city smells of diesel, dust, and smoke. Concrete walls streaked black. Streets alive with shouting and clattering steel shutters. U.S. trucks crawl through the city, long olive convoys against the brown haze. The war was over, or so they said. Saddam was gone, and the world's richest nations were promising to rebuild what they'd just blown apart. The Coalition Provisional Authority, the CPA, moves into Saddam's old palace complex. Marble halls turned into offices. Fountains run dry. Printers hum under chandeliers. Someone tapes a sign to a wooden door. Development Fund for Iraq. That was the big idea. One fund to get the country back on its feet. Roads, hospitals, schools. Oil money, seized assets, foreign donations, all flowing into a single account. And at the top, Paul Bremer, the American administrator running Iraq, the so-called viceroy. It looked like order, the kind that makes people breathe easier after chaos. What no one realized was that it was order made of paper and promises. Early morning at an airbase in New Jersey, a forklift pushes sealed boxes toward an open cargo plane, each stamped currency, Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Engines rumble. Workers shout over the noise. In the months after Saddam fell, the U.S. shipped nearly $12 billion in cash to Baghdad. Literal cash, shrink-wrapped bricks of hundreds. Pallets of bills loaded on trucks. Soldiers guarding convoy routes. An officer signs a clipboard. 10 million received. The idea was simple. Iraq's banks were gone. ATMs destroyed. No electronic transfers. If you wanted to pay salaries, fix pipes, or buy loyalty, you needed money you could hold. Problem is, once cash touches human hands, it leaves no fingerprints. And the people moving it weren't just soldiers. They were contractors, local officials, middlemen, all with access. The city begins to stir again. Posters of reconstruction projects flap on half-standing walls. Children run through rubble. Inside a small, airless office, a man in a suit counts bills under a ceiling fan. Another scribbles in a ledger. "It's just temporary," says one Western consultant, "until the banks reopen." Cash became the bloodstream of the new Iraq. It was everywhere, in duffel bags, in armored trucks, in old palaces guarded by Marines. At one point, there were stories of money stacked on tables, waist-high, guarded by a single bored soldier. That's the part that always gets me. They thought it was normal. Because when you're building a country from rubble, what's a few million unaccounted for? Everyone was focused on keeping the lights on, paying workers, keeping the violence down. The system was improvised, but it worked, for a while. In another corner of Baghdad, local workers line up for wages, each handed a thick envelope of cash. Faces tired, hopeful. For them, this wasn't corruption or chaos, it was survival. In a basement office, an accountant flips through a stack of invoices. She stops. A number's missing, another crossed out. Then she sees a payment to a company she's never heard of. No phone number, no address. Little things start to appear. Figures that don't add up. Receipts without signatures. Payments made to ghosts. She picks up a satellite phone, dials. No answer. Someone, somewhere, had found a way to make the chaos work for them. Outside, a convoy of trucks rumbles away from the city, headlights cutting the dark. And here's the thing. There was no tracking system, no digital registry, no serial number registry. Once the cash hit Iraqi soil, it entered a black hole. Footsteps echo in a marble hallway. A vault door slams shut, a faint laugh from behind it. From that moment on, hundreds of millions of dollars became stories no one could prove. A small, airless office in Baghdad's green zone. A man smooths his tie, slides a folder into his briefcase. He locks it, stands, adjusts his cuffs. He leaves the office. The door swings closed. On the desk behind him lies a single sheet of paper, a receipt, signed in blue ink, $270 million, confirmed delivered. The fan turns lazily overhead. The page flutters. He had a system, and no one saw it coming.
He had a system, and like all good systems, it started with order. Every morning before the city woke, he walked the narrow hallway of the finance compound. A small cup of instant coffee in one hand, the other trailing lightly along the wall, fingertips brushing chipped plaster. By the time the first staff arrived, his desk was already immaculate. Pens aligned, folders squared, one crisp legal pad waiting. He looked like a man who believed in paperwork. That was the trick. "Everything accounted for?" a British officer asked one morning, glancing through the open door. "Of course," he said, without looking up. "Every dinar, every dollar." And technically, he wasn't lying. The numbers did add up, just not the way anyone expected. The system began as a necessity. Iraq's ministries were drowning in confusion. Departments couldn't pay staff. Records were burned or looted. The banks were barely functioning. Someone had to keep things moving, and he stepped in. Efficient, polite, forgettable. He spoke just enough Arabic to earn trust, and enough English to blend into the bureaucratic fog of the green zone. On paper, he handled contract disbursement oversight. In reality, he handled the flow. It worked like this. When the coalition needed to pay a local contractor for fuel, construction, security, they'd release funds from the Development Fund for Iraq. Large sums, fast, no banks, just cash. He'd sign the authorizations, then route payments through local partners, usually shell companies with patriotic names: Rebuild Iraq Co., Desert Power Logistics, Future Horizon. Each had a real-looking stamp. Each existed, only on paper. At first, the diversions were small. 50,000 here, 200 there, smoothed out through fake invoices or padded budgets. No one noticed. The chaos was too loud. When auditors came through, they found neat records, clean spreadsheets, everything formatted correctly. But if you traced the physical cash, which no one ever really did, you'd see a pattern. Multiple withdrawals authorized under his signature, routed to compounds that didn't exist or paid to contractors who'd already fled the country. It was almost beautiful in a terrible way. A local clerk once asked him, half joking, "How do you keep it all straight?" He smiled, "The same way you keep the lights on, one generator at a time." That was his genius. Not greed, not violence. Systems. Simple, reliable systems. Every Friday evening, when most of the foreign staff disappeared to their safe zone bars, he stayed late. The hum of the compound faded, leaving just the slow click of his keyboard and the hiss of the ceiling fan. He typed new company names, adjust contracts, print receipts. Then he'd walk to the vault and make sure the real thing, the money itself, was moving exactly where it should. To anyone watching, he was a man obsessed with doing things by the book. And technically, he was. It just happened to be a book he'd written himself. Outside, Baghdad pulsed with noise. Curfews, explosions, checkpoints. Inside, he created calm. Lines of numbers that obeyed him. That's what the money meant to him. Not wealth, not luxury. Control. When you're surrounded by chaos, control is oxygen. A few months in, the system grew bolder. Payments that once went through 3 intermediaries now passed through 5. Contractors were renamed mid-project. Serial numbers on receipts were copied, rearranged, or deleted. An internal email from a junior accountant reads, "Sir, we've already paid this vendor last quarter. Please confirm duplication." He replied minutes later, "It's a separate project. The details were merged by mistake. Proceed." No one questioned it again. Each layer he added made it harder to see the whole. He wasn't stealing cash like a thief in a movie. He was building a labyrinth. When investigators later tried to untangle the records, they found loops within loops. Companies paid themselves, contracts linked back to the same bank account under different names. He'd created what one auditor later called a self-sustaining illusion of legitimacy. And the strangest part, he still lived like a mid-level bureaucrat. Small apartment, secondhand Toyota, pressed shirts washed in hand in the sink. He wasn't chasing mansions or yachts. He was chasing control. One night, a colleague stayed behind to finish reports and caught him leaving the vault with 2 guards. "What's the hurry?" she teased. He hesitated. "Routine transfer." "To where?" "Basra." She frowned. "At midnight?" He smiled again. The same calm, practiced smile. In Iraq, timing is everything. Then he stepped into the armored truck and was gone. Later, that same colleague mentioned the exchange to an American auditor. They laughed it off. Basra needs money like the rest of them. Probably another emergency. No one followed up. By then, his routine had become the rule. The shipments continued. Some cash went to genuine projects, some didn't. And because the whole operation ran on paper and handshakes, the boundaries blurred completely. Once, the courier complained about missing documentation for a $10 million delivery. He said, "Just sign it. You'll thank me when your salary clears." And it did, every time. Inside the vault, he began keeping 2 ledgers, one for public eyes, one for his own. The real one was handwritten, coded, amounts disguised as project numbers, names replaced by abbreviations only he understood. A friend once joked, "If you ever get hit by a mortar, no one will know where the money went." He looked up, expression unreadable. Exactly.
The more he succeeded, the bolder he became. He started manipulating not just the accounts, but the audits themselves. He'd sit with visiting inspectors, offering them tea, answering questions with quiet confidence. Yes, that payment was approved. Yes, documentation is in transit. Yes, you can check with the minister, but he's traveling today. By the time they left, he'd already filed their signatures into his archive, ready to reuse. Then came the windfall. $270 million in emergency funds intended to stabilize the ministries before elections. The largest single transfer yet. He saw the opportunity instantly. One line item, one authorization, dispersed across multiple accounts, none traceable. He didn't even have to hide it, just move it. He wrote the memo himself. Funds confirmed delivered, awaiting allocation update, and signed it with his usual calm precision. For weeks, everything ran smoothly. The reports matched, the payments balanced, the illusion held. But systems, no matter how elegant, rot from the inside. The same accountant who'd once questioned a duplicate invoice noticed another irregularity, this time tied to the $270 million transfer. She cross-checked the signatures. One didn't match. The stamp was off by 0.5 millimeter. It was small, almost invisible, but enough. She brought it to her superior, who hesitated. Probably a printing error. Still, the seed was planted. Soon, the first inquiry came from Washington, then another from Iraq. Requests for clarification, documentation, proof. He met each one with the same steady tone. Of course, I'll get you the receipts. But for the first time, he couldn't. The money had moved too far, too fast, and the path he'd built to protect himself now led nowhere. It's almost beautiful, in a terrible way, how something built to control chaos ended up collapsing under its own design. The perfect system eating itself alive, and that's when his perfect system collapsed.
The first thing to go was silence. Inside the finance compound, every corridor had a sound. Phones ringing, printers grinding, the murmur of guarded conversations. But one morning, it was different. Quieter. Heavy. He arrived as usual. Same neat shirt, same metal thermos, same measured step. Only this time, the guards didn't look at him. They looked through him. On his desk, a folder waited. Red tab. Thin. Official. He opened it, scanned the pages, and for the first time, he paused. Requests for clarification. Dates that didn't match. Signatures that weren't quite his. He set the paper down carefully, smoothed the edge with his thumb, and exhaled once through his nose. "They've started asking questions," he murmured. The inquiry widened fast. Washington wanted answers. Baghdad wanted someone to blame. Auditors who'd once shaken his hand now arrived with escort. The files he'd curated, every receipt, every stamp, every controlled detail were now being pulled apart. Where are the original ledgers? Who authorized the emergency transfers? Why were there duplicate contracts? He answered each one calmly, every lie folded into truth, every truth bent slightly to fit. But lies don't crumble all at once. They soften first. They warp. That week, a clerk came forward, the same one who'd spotted the forged signature. She testified quietly, barely above a whisper. Her hands trembled as she spoke. She wasn't angry, just tired. "I think we lost something bigger than money," she said. He sat across from her, expression unreadable. "Do you really believe that?" he asked. "Yes." "Then you're already part of the illusion," he said. It was meant to sound clever. It only sounded sad.
The investigation kept unraveling. Documents traced to non-existent contractors. Cash recorded as delivered that never reached a single ministry. A warehouse ledger showing the same serial number listed 3 times under different accounts. And then the line item that couldn't be ignored. $270 million, confirmed delivered. Delivered where? To whom? No answer. The vault was emptied weeks before. The trucks were gone. When they finally suspended him, there was no spectacle, no handcuffs, no shouting. He handed over his badge, cleared his desk, and walked out into the heat. The sky above Baghdad was colorless, the kind of gray that eats the horizon. Outside the gate, a reporter tried to ask a question, microphone trembling in the wind. He didn't stop walking. Later, the official report would use phrases like insufficient oversight, lack of accounting structure, untraceable disbursement. But what it really meant was this: no one ever found the money. They froze accounts, interviewed staff, chased contractors across borders. Nothing. The cash was gone, vaporized into thin air, leaving only numbers, empty signatures, and silence. He disappeared for a while after that. Some said he left the country under a different name. Others claimed he stayed, buried in Baghdad somewhere, living quietly off the fragments he'd siphoned. A rumor even surfaced years later. An American investigator swore he'd seen him working at a private logistics firm in Dubai. Gray hair, same calm eyes, as if nothing had happened. But if you looked closely, the consequences were everywhere. The Ministry of Health postponed hospital projects for lack of funds. The power grid repairs stalled halfway through. Teachers in the South went months without pay. Every missing dollar had a shadow attached to it. A road unbuilt, a generator unfueled, a family unpaid. One Iraqi foreman described it best: the money vanished, but the holes stayed. In 2006, a congressional audit revisited the case. Pages of testimony, charts, scanned ledgers, words like accountability and transparency scattered across the margins. But reading through it now feels hollow. No one was ever convicted. No single person held fully responsible. The story ended not with justice, just exhaustion. That's the quiet horror of it. When theft is large enough, it stops feeling like a crime. It becomes an event. Years later, someone reopened the old vault, the same one from the beginning. The walls were still scarred from bolts and crates, the metal floor stained from years of humidity and rust. They found nothing except a faded clipboard with a checklist dated 2004. Every line ticked. Final entry. Funds delivered. Confirmed. The air smelled of dust and disuse. Somewhere outside, a generator clicked on, breaking the stillness. There's an interview, buried in a 2007 news segment, where one of the former auditors, gray suit, sleepless eyes, stares straight into the camera. It wasn't one man. It was the system. We built a machine that ran on trust and panic, and he just learned to drive it. The interviewer asks, "Do you think he regrets it?" He doesn't answer. He just looks down at his hands. The film loops back to the beginning now. That cavernous warehouse, flickering lights, one torn bundle of bills still resting on the concrete. Same hum, same silence. Only now, it's not just about the money.
It's about the feeling that someone could build a world so tightly wound around procedure that you'd never notice it bleeding. The camera lingers on the empty space where the pallets once stood. A voice, low, reflective. They said it vanished. But things don't vanish. They just hide inside systems that look like order. Outside, distant thunder rolls across the desert. A door creaks open, then slowly closes again. In the end, there's no explosion, no reveal, just absence, the soft echo of something that used to matter. He once told a colleague, "If you can make chaos predictable, you can survive anything." Maybe he believed it. Maybe he still does. But watching those final frames, the silent vault, the broken light, the hum that never stops, you can't help but thinking, maybe the most dangerous place is inside a routine.